pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice and justice for all. Amen.
Okay, again, welcome everybody to the 9th annual Old-Fashioned 4th of July celebration at the Lawrence Heritage State Park. My name is Rich Padover. I am the organizer of the Old-Fashioned 4th of July celebration, also a professor at Northern Essex Community College, and also the designer, creator, and curator of the exhibit that you'll all get to see after lunch on World War I and D-Day that we have up here running for this summer. And I just have the requisite announcements to make, and then we will read the Declaration of Independence, and then have lunch, and then there'll be the drawings, the free drawings for the prizes. So I just wanted to mention a couple of things. First of all, on July 4th, 1777, when we were celebrating the first anniversary of the United States of America, I just want to give you an idea. In Philadelphia, okay, now we're having a traditional 4th of July luncheon here today. Those of you who've come here in the past, you know what to expect, and it's the same, and hopefully everybody likes it. But when the first anniversary of the birth of our nation was being celebrated in Philadelphia in 1777, what did they have to eat on that day? I thought you might be interested in knowing this. I came across it. Well, they had roast turkey on 4th of July, okay? Normally something we associate now with Thanksgiving, right? Okay? But on our nation's first birthday in Philadelphia, anyway, they were eating roast turkey. And also, fricasseed rabbit was on the menu that day as well. They also had pigeon, crawfish, yes, lobsters. I'm making Frank hungry over there. Lobsters, oysters, salmon, sturgeon, lamb, and for a vegetable, turnips, okay? So that was the menu for the first anniversary of the birth of our nation back in Philadelphia. So we're not really going to have any of that here today. It'll be traditional 4th of July fare, okay? Hot dogs and hamburgers and all that, but I just thought I'd share that with you. And next I'd like to do the thank yous. There are a lot of people that we need to thank here this morning for making this, or this afternoon for making this all possible. First of all, the raffle prizes that we'll be having the drawings for after lunch. Those are courtesy of Joe Bella, the president of the Friends. Thank you. He's not able to be with us today, but he is the president of the Friends group here at Lawrence Heritage. So Joe and the Civil War Memorial Guard have been very generous in donating the raffle prizes. And we thank their presence here today as well. Also, my parents, Sam and Connie Potter. And who also helped me bag the popcorn that you've been enjoying there. So, my father, who, if you saw the Eagle Tribune this morning, my father is mentioned in the article on the exhibit here in the gallery. So, thank you, Dad, for your help with the exhibit there as well. Yes. Amelia and Tilly Stunza, who also donated some prizes for the raffle, so thank you too. Yes. Thank you both, longtime friends of Lawrence Heritage. We appreciate your support and participation as always. Also, I'd like to thank the Eagle Tribune for their coverage. I believe it was June 24th. They had a fairly large article on our upcoming 4th of July celebration that we're celebrating here today. And also in this morning's Tribune, there was a nice article about the exhibit that on World War I and D-Day that we'll all get to see after lunch in the gallery behind me. So I'd like to thank the Eagle Tribune for their coverage as always. And And also Rumbo Magazine, which has been very supportive of us over the years, Dahlia and Alberto. Thank you for all your support and publicity that you do all the time for Lawrence Heritage. Much appreciated. So, yes, okay. Next, I just want to mention about what we do here, okay? Most of you, I think, are familiar with Lawrence Heritage. Some of you, perhaps, are new here. This is one of the first buildings that was built in Lawrence in 1848. It was a boarding house for the mill girls who worked in the factories. This is where they resided. Actually, up here on the 3rd and 4th floors, where we are, were the bedrooms where the young girls lived while they were working in the mills, 13, 14, 15, 16 years old. So we are very proud and happy now that this is a museum and a visitor center that showcases the history of Lawrence and Greater Lawrence, the immigrant history, the industrial history, and environmental history, the Native Americans. So if you have not had a chance to look at our exhibits yet on the 1st and 2nd floors, hopefully today or come back anytime. We're open daily, 9 to 4, free admission. So please do check out the exhibits if you haven't already. Okay, and as far as the programs that we offer here during the summertime, and there are flyers when you get off the elevator as well as downstairs in the lobby. But one of our most popular programs are the boat tours on the Merrimack River. That's the blue flyer, okay? So every Sunday afternoon, starting in 2 days until August 24th, from 1 to 3 in the afternoon, we offer boat rides on the Merrimack River. Now, we do ask you to sign up in advance for these because the boat does have a limited capacity of 18 people. And I believe for this coming Sunday, in 2 days, we have 5 seats left. So, but you have your choice of, any Sunday until August 24th, okay? So please do give us a call, put your name on the reservation list, and let us know how many people are in your party, all right? And then you just have to be at the Bashara Boathouse in South Lawrence for 1 o'clock on Sunday. So I do the narration. You'll learn a lot about the history of the Merrimack Valley, the river, and then we have a boat captain who drives the boat. So. We have a new tour this year. It's called Monuments and Martyrs, a historic walking tour of the Compagnon Common. This I'm doing on Tuesdays from 10 to 11:30. This would be, thank you, Frank, this would be the purple flyer, okay? So all you need to do is show up here for 10 o'clock any Tuesday during the summer, and I will lead you, if it's an individual or if a group, I'll lead the group out to the common, and I will give you a tour of the common and explain all about the monuments there that are on the common and the names and the faces behind them. All right. Also, we do have the exhibit that I mentioned, Fall of Empires, the Great War. It's dedicated to the 100th anniversary of World War I this year, as well as the 70th anniversary of D-Day. So again, we will have the grand opening right after dessert today. Hopefully you'll be able to take a look. And if you're not able to stay for that today, please do come anytime it's up. I'll be taking it down on August 28th, so you still have a couple of months to see the exhibit, all right? And that is sponsored by Lawrence Heritage, the Lawrence History Center, and the Lawrence Public Library, with special funding assistance from the Service Center of Greater Lawrence Incorporated. So, and also I want to thank I drew upon some private collections to help set up the exhibit. So Joe Beller, again, the president of the Friends Group here, has some of his items on display. I do some of my father's items there. And special thanks to one of our summer maintenance staff, Charlie Baz, who also helped me set up the exhibit. And also thank you, of course, too, to the complete staff here at Lawrence Heritage, who has been very accommodating and very helpful with my demands as I was setting up the exhibit earlier this week. So thank you all. Also, on the green sheet that you'll see by the elevator and in the lobby, this lists all the tours that I'm doing this summer on one single sheet of paper, okay? So please do take one if you haven't already. So basically on Sundays, it's the narrated boat tours. On Mondays, I do the Bread and Roses Strike walking tour of downtown Lawrence. Tuesdays, it's the Monuments and Martyrs walking tour on the company-owned Common. Wednesdays, I do the Gateway to Lawrence walking tour, which is out here on Canal Street. Thursdays, I do the Water Power walking tour, which here at the Heritage we affectionately nicknamed the Dam Tour because, as in D-A-M, because with that tour group I take you out through Pemberton Park and we go out to the base of the dam and you'll learn all about the water power history here in Lawrence that made a big difference that was necessary in running the textile mills here in Lawrence, okay? So those are the walking tours and the boat tours that I do here during the summer. So please do take advantage of any of them or all of them. I'm happy to take one person out or a group of people out on my tours, okay? I've been asked to pass along some information here to you as well. There will be a public forum on Tuesday, July 8th at 6 o'clock at the Lawrence Senior Center, 155 Haverhill Street. This will be on Comcast cable services and local access programming in Lawrence, okay? So this is your chance to, if you have any questions or concerns about your cable-related needs and interests, okay? So feel free to attend that if you like. And lastly, before we start the talks here, the oration, today we are having a special. If you would like to join, if you're not currently already a member, but if you would like to join the Friends of Lawrence Heritage State Park, this would be the group of people who supports the park. We appreciate your support in any which way you can give it. For today only, we're having a half-price membership here on the Friends, okay? So if you'd like to join the Friends, which again is the group of supporters of the park, feel free to take one of these brochures. You'll see them by the elevator and downstairs, and then just return it to us or mail it back to us with the pertinent information. And again, just whatever it says for the membership, just cut it in half price for today only, okay? So, okay, I believe those are the announcements that I had to make, okay? So now, as you know, we have a guest speaker every year who gives us a brief oration on some aspect of Lawrence and 4th of July and anything else that they wish to focus on. So this year I reached out to Mayor Rivera, and he was kind enough to accept my offer to be this year's guest speaker. As you know, we have had mayors Mayor Sullivan in the past had spoken here, and we're very happy to have Mayor Dan Rivera this year as our guest orator. So, thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning, man.
What a great job Richard and the staff here at the Heritage State Park in this day celebrating our independence. Thank you so much. You know, we should count ourselves lucky to have folks like you around to make sure we don't ever forget, you know, some of these things that are living around us every day. But as a son of immigrants, I find myself honored to be serving as the mayor of the city of immigrants, because you know, my mom came here when I was a small child to work in the factories, as many families before mine came to work in the factories and the mills. And we, you know, you come just to make a better life for your family, but kind of like what they did back in the colonial days. They came to do the same thing and establish their religious freedom. And it's not a small thing. If you think about it, well, today is the 4th of July, we have independence. People kind of take it for granted. We are an independent country. But what a big deal it was to stand up in front of God and the world and say, we're gonna be independent and we don't really want you guys to rule us anymore, and say that to the biggest empire in the world at the time. I think during that time the sun never sat on the British Empire, right? So to think that people in India who were under colonial rule, people in the Americas that were under colonial rules, I guess that made the United States too, but the North America that was under British rule, that this small group of people would stand up and say, we're just not going to take this anymore, we're going to do this and then fight a war to support it. And it's very moving because imagine being an 18-year-old Italian immigrant, Polish immigrant, and standing up and saying, you know what, I'm gonna get on a boat and travel the Atlantic for, I don't know how many months it was back then to cross the Atlantic, and then with the expectation that you would never see your family again. And it became a little easier to travel from places to be from immigrant places, but my mom did the same thing. She, with a baby at 16 years old, she got on a plane, she came to the United States with the expectation that she might not go back. And that is also a declaration of independence, and in the sense that wanting to make a better place. And when we have days like this, as you can see, I do enjoy the food aspect of it, so I'm looking forward to a couple hot dogs and hamburgers. But at the same time, I like to reflect on that impact that one group of people. Now there was interest involved, right? There was, taxation on tea, quartering without really allowing people to say no to quartering of soldiers. The idea that if you had to have something heard before a magistrate, it had to go to England, be heard there, and whenever they decided to hear it, maybe be decided there without any representation from us in the colonies here, in a manner that had really a large impact here. So there was a lot of things going on. There was money, and there was livelihoods and families, and to say to people that said, well, we just can't have that anymore. Today we're reaping that result of all those things, but it was no small feat, again, in the shadow of this huge empire. And so us, as we think about how we make Lawrence better every day, in the shadow of a not great economy, in the shadow of these mills that we're trying to fill and remain to some extent dormant, we too have to think about how we're going to do that. And we every day just say, well, we have to do it. We can't not do it. So I think back when these guys did this extremely important thing, declaring their independence, in large part they had to do it because they could not do it. And so just like the immigrants that came after that, they didn't come because they necessarily wanted to, because they had to do it. And so that's the way we take the task on at City Hall today every day, that we try to make change and we try to make Lawrence a better city because we have to. And because we have been given this great responsibility as Americans to, every time we see something that was not really that great, to declare our independence of it and make it better. And we feel like that's what we're going to do here together. I will say it's a job that we do with the support of the City Council and the state delegation. And I know Mark LaPlante, Councilor from District F, is here today. Thank you, Mark, for being here. And Roger Toomey, our Councilor at Large, is here with his wife. And it's not easy, just like I'm sure if you were in the room when they decided to debate those discussions about whether or not to declare independence, every comma was debated, every period was debated, even the vote itself was debated. So we do that every day. We hammer stuff out, and we come at the end of the day, we come up with something good. So I am really honored to be here again as a son of an immigrant and as a veteran. I think about these days in a real, both somber, but also the level of gravity that it really does deserve. And we are blessed to have been welcomed to us. My family were blessed to have been welcomed into this country, and I am honored to continue that support of our great nation. So thank you so much, and thank you for inviting me.
Okay, yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. We appreciate your attendance here today and your words of inspiration. Next, Jamie Melendez, who is the Veterans Director for the City of Lawrence, will talk to us briefly about the military, the World War, in advance of the grand opening of the exhibit today. So, Mr. Melendez.
Thank you. I brought with me a couple of notes, but first I'd like to say I want to thank God for the opportunity to talk to you today. I think it's a wonderful thing that we're doing, that Rich, you're doing here, specifically with the exhibit. It's important to remember, you know, generations ago, a generation ago, people sacrificed to provide us Independence Day. And so it's important to remember that. Mayor, thank you for being here. I appreciate the opportunity that you've given me to be able to serve our city, and it's a pleasure every day to continue to do that. To Councilor LaPlante and Toomey, I want to say thank you specifically for all the help and joint endeavors that we together have completed and will continue to complete for our veterans and their families here in Lawrence. To friends and family, thank you for being here. Specifically to my mother, I want to say thank you for all you've done for me. You make me, and you've made me the man that I am today. I've always said, you know, behind every man is a strong woman. Well, in front of me as a child was this strong woman, and I grew up in her shadow, and I can only wish to accomplish half the things you've done for the city of Lawrence. So I was asked to speak specifically. I know it's Independence Day, and it's a day of celebration. But in order to have that celebration, sometimes you have to remember the somber moments. And a couple of those are the fact that we are also celebrating 100 years of the beginning of World War I and 70 years of the 70 years and 30 days about of the beginning of D-Day, which sort of brought World War II to an end. So I've been asked to speak about these two subjects, and I want to share some thoughts and numbers with you. World War I was also known as the First World War, the Great War, the European War, the War of Nations. It was fought primarily in Europe from 1914 to 1918. The Allies were France, Britain, Russia, Japan, Italy, and in later years, the United States. The Central Powers were Turkey, Germany, Austria/Hungary, and Bulgaria. It was triggered by the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand and ended with the Treaty of Versailles in 1919. World War II, known as the Second World War, was fought between 1939 and 1945. The Allies were Britain, France, the USSR, or Soviet Union, China, and the US. The Axis powers, which what they were called at the time, was Germany, Italy, and Japan. And it was triggered by the harsh conditions set forth by the Treaty of Versailles and Hitler's ambition for world domination. The casualties in World War I were about 10 million military, 7 million civilians, over 21 million wounded, and 7.7 million missing or in prison. Just think about those numbers for a moment. In World War II, I got my cards a little messed up here. Okay, in World War II, there were over 60 million dead. The estimations ranged between 50 and 80 million. Between 38 and 58 million were civilians. World War II ended most part because of D-Day and with the defeat of Germany and the rise of a new world and new superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, and the creation of the UN. So in summary, while World War I was fought in trenches and was a very devastating war, World War II was fought on a much broader scale using modern weapons and even the atomic bomb. World War I and World War II are more different than each other. This is because the concept the fighting was behind in the First World War. The conflict started because of nation Serbia, was fighting for its independence. In the Second World War, the fighting was done over a man's hate of anything other than what they represented. There are many patterns between the two world wars. The most noticeable of these are the technological innovations of the two eras. Both wars brought about the need for new weapons and technology. And in turn, this production helped the economies of the countries making the arms. Even though both wars were horrible in the death they brought about, World War II was far worse. Because of the sheer numbers and the deaths of the innocent, comparatively, World War II saw 6.5 times the number of people die than World War I, including people from the Holocaust and the dropping of the atomic bomb. The wars were two of the most negative times in the history of the world. There was so much death and destruction during this time that it must have made it unbearable for the people to deal with life. World War II was the worst showing of racism ever recorded. It is my wish in my lifetime and in the lifetime of my child and his children to never have to deal with a world war, because I personally could not bear all that death. Thank you for your time.
While we're on the, thank you, Jamie. And while we're on the topic, I would just, I just want to reiterate that I'm very grateful. We've had the recognition of City Hall here today. And again, I just want to personally express my thanks to the representation from the City of Lawrence, Mayor Rivera, Jamie Melendez, the Veterans Services Director, Councilor Toomey, and Councilor LaPlante. So thank you all, I appreciate you. I appreciate your representing the city here today. And I also want to recognize if we have any veterans here, and I know my father is from World War II, if we have any other World War, yes, okay, any other World War II veterans. Yes. So any, I know we don't have any World War I veterans here, but right. But World War II, the Korean conflict, the Vietnam conflict, the Iraqi War, any other wars that anybody here may have been involved in. If you could please stand up, and I'd like to give you all a round of applause. So yes, so thank you for your service to our country. It's much appreciated. Okay, what we normally do next, and then we'll have lunch, the hot dogs are still cooking right now, is those of you who've been to this before, as you know, what I normally do now is we read aloud the Declaration of Independence. And I'll get us started, and then I'd like to have volunteers, children and adults, who would like to read a paragraph or two. And yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd especially like to have you read part of it for us. And then anybody else who would like to take part, if you can please line up over here to my left. In Congress, July 4th, 1776, the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies. For such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world.
He has refused his actions to laws the most wholesome necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his government to pass laws of immediate and press importance, unless suspending their operation till his action should be obtained. And when so suspended, he has usually neglected to attend to them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies as placing useful, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of the public records, for the sole purpose of frightening them into compliance with his measures.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time, after such dissolutions, to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states for that purpose, obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands.
He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people in need out of their substance. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He has affected to render the military independent and superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and acknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation, for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states, for cutting off trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefit of trial by jury, for transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pertinent offenses.
Okay, thank you. Well, yeah, if you can hold your applause.
For abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies. For taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments.
For suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is, at this time, transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny, already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy, scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages, and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation.
He has constrained our fellow citizens, taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrections amongst us, and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers, the merciless Indian savages whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. Our prince, whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant, is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our emigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and of consanguinity. We must, therefore, acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them, as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war and peace.
We therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by the authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right to do, and for the support of this declaration with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
And it's signed John Hancock. Okay.
Okay, if you want to start reading the states and the signers from each state.
New Hampshire, Josiah Bartlett, William Whipple, Matthew Thornton. Massachusetts, John Hancock, Samuel Adams, John Adams, Robert Treat Payne, Elbridge Gerry. Rhode Island, Stephen Hopkins, William Ellery.
And Connecticut, Roger Sherman, Samuel Huntington, William Williams, Oliver Walcott. New York, William Floyd, Philip Livingston, Francis Lewis, Lewis Morris. New Jersey, Richard Stockton, John Witherspoon, Francis Hopkins, John Hart, Abraham Clark. In Pennsylvania, Robert Morris, Benjamin Rush, Benjamin Franklin, John Morgan, George Clymer, James Smith, George Taylor, James Wilson, and George Ross.
Thank you, Sean. And if you want to finish it, start with Delaware.
Delaware, Caesar Rodney, George Reed, Thomas McKeon. Maryland, Samuel Chase, William Packard, Thomas Stone, Charles Carroll of Carrollton. Virginia, George Wright, Richard Henry Lee, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Harrison, Thomas Nelson Jr., Francis Lightfoot Lee, Carter Braxton. North Carolina, William Hopper, Joseph Hughes, John Penn. South Carolina, Edward Rutledge, Thomas Haywood Jr., Thomas Lynch Jr., Arthur Middleton. In Georgia, Button Winwit, Lyman Hall, and George Walton.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for your participation. I appreciate it. Now, one other announcement I just thought of that I do need to make before lunch. The Bread and Roses Festival, how could I forget? Coming up on Labor Day. This all began in 1984. So coming up Labor Day, September 1st this year, is the 30th Annual Bread and Roses Festival on the Compagnon Common, also known as the North Common, okay? From 12 to 6, I believe. So it's when we commemorate the great textile strike of 1912 here in Lawrence, also known as the Bread and Roses Strike, okay? So we have a big festival, as many of you know, on Labor Day on the Common, and we certainly encourage you to come and participate in the commemoration and the festival for on Labor Day to mark the Bread and Roses Strike.